Hi, this is 13 Muluk. There's been quite a lot of talk lately about Archons in several quarters, and this is a subject that interests me personally. The reason I came onto this subject in the first place was about 3 or 4 years ago. I was having these strange dreams. They weren't even really dreams. I would wake up in the morning and not be able to remember anything that I dreamt about. But I had this very frustrating sense that I had just known something that I couldn't remember, something important. And around that time, one day I woke up and I had a word in my mind. And the word was Archons. And at the time, I didn't know what Archons meant. But I had a very strong sense that this word was important and that I needed to find out what it meant. So off I went to the internet and I looked it up. And I, like a lot of people, came across the work of John Lash, who talks about the hypostasis of the Archons, which is part of the Nag Hammadi materials. And he also mentioned an account given by Don Juan Matus via Carlos Castaneda that's in a chapter called Mud Shadows from his posthumously published book called The Active Side of Infinity. And this really caught my interest because it did explain a lot of things that had been bothering me, that had been intractable problems up until that point. So I started investigating it, and the main way I investigated it was by watching my own mind, watching the thoughts that go through my mind to identify their source. And also just to pay attention, to see what's there. Because most of the time we don't pay attention to the thoughts that go through our minds, or we only pay attention to the ones we want to pay attention to. But if you pay attention consistently, you will find that most of the thoughts that go through your mind they're not really your thoughts at all. And most of them are quite negative. And we prefer not to see this of ourselves, but this is the case. And the longer I watched them, the more I understood how they operate. And I eventually became convinced that this is actually what has happened to us, that we've been deviated by these mind parasites. Now, once this information started coming to light, a lot of people started contributing their own ideas to the subject, and many of them have, in my opinion, veered wildly off course and really distorted the information, including John Lash. Okay, so one of the things that people are doing is they're associating the Archons with physical aliens, and that doesn't agree with the Gnostic texts, and it certainly doesn't agree with what Don Juan said. They're not physical aliens from another planet. They are actually not of the physical world at all. They are energetic beings, artificial energetic beings. And more recently, John Lash has taken an extreme turn for the crazy, and he started claiming that, well, it's not entirely his idea, I think. It's a combination of his theories and Thomas Sheridan's theories. They've started claiming that the Archons are synonymous with human psychopaths. And this idea is completely wrong. It's completely wrong. It doesn't agree with the hypostasis of the Archons that we have from the Gnostics, and it doesn't agree with Don Juan's account. The psychopaths are not the Archons. Okay, they're not. The Archons affect us all. Psychopaths have the misfortune of not having any counterbalancing influence to prevent this kind of deviation. So they present extreme cases. They show us what it looks like when this is all there is. But that doesn't mean that the rest of us are immune to it. And if we start thinking that we're immune to it, we're in big, big trouble. Lately, John Lash and Thomas Sheridan have been agitating for humans to rise up and kill all the psychopaths. Kill them. And, well, since John Lash is too old to go rushing into battle on his own, then presumably he means for other people to do this and to also take the consequences for it. But this is a dangerously crazy idea, and it wouldn't help us. Even if we could do it, it wouldn't help. Because the thing is, they don't seem to understand what psychopathy is. These people are not evil. They are brain damaged. They're brain damaged. They are incapable of compassion. They're incapable of remorse. They don't have that thing in them that allows them to know the difference between right and wrong. So psychopaths are moral cripples, you could say. They're moral cripples, and they can't make a moral choice. They're not capable. But they make up a very small percentage of the population of this planet. And they could not do the damage that they're doing unless the rest of us went along with it. The rest of us supposedly can make a moral choice. We have that ability. So it would seem like the solution lies with us. It lies with us figuring out what is it in us that admires the psychopaths. What is it in us that wants to give them rulership of our lives and let them make all our decisions for us? That's what we should be concerning ourselves with, not killing the psychopaths. It should be looking at our own minds and finding out what it is in there that puts up with that. I think it would be instructive for people to consider that just like psychopathy is a form of mental aberration, brain damage, other forms of mental illness that impair people's ability to function would be equally dangerous if we were to let those people run the world. Now, if you were to let schizophrenics, for instance, run the world, make all the rules, and decide what we do, they would probably produce an even worse situation than the psychopaths have. But we don't let schizophrenics do that because we're at least sane enough to be able to recognize that they're not the people who should be in charge, that they are like really unsuited for that. And if we had the same attitude towards the psychopaths, if we just became practiced in identifying them, we could not elect them to positions of public office. We could not put them in positions where they affect the lives of other humans with their decisions. And that would be a solution to the problem. But killing all the psychopaths is just, well, it might make some people feel better for a little while, but it wouldn't solve the problem. There are always going to be psychopaths. We need to find out why we let them run things. And so I just wanted to point that out, because it doesn't seem like the voice of reason is really being represented anymore. And I like to think that I can provide that to some extent, or at least provide an alternate view. So, thanks for listening.